Before we put the pattern on the fabric, there's something that I want you to do to mark the pattern. And to do this, we're going to use a highlighter. Just makes it easier. And it's about where we put the pins. Now our pins should be, when we're pinning on a pattern, they should be mostly parallel to the cut edge. And so this line right here on the pattern piece is actually where we're going to cut. This one is where we're going to sew. So we're going to try to put our pins in between those two whenever we can. This piece is particularly interesting because we have to put it on a fold. So let's talk about where we're going to put our pins. And we're going to use our highlighter to mark where they go. Well, the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to put a pin at the two ends of where the arrow are. So one about here and one about here. And I would also probably put one in the middle here just to hold this whole edge flat. I use a method called using the compass points to pin. And what it does is it allows me to keep my pattern as much as possible flat, and then I don't have to worry about a bubble. If you start pinning at one side and pin around in a square or whatever, you go around the pattern, then what happens is by the time you get over here, you usually have shifted the top of the pattern enough that you now have a bubble in there. It's not going to lay flat. So we use the compass points, north, south, east, and west, just like when we read a map. So we've done this line first. We're going to go straight up north and put a pin here, again, between the cutting line and the sewing line. We're going to put one on east, and we're going to put one on west. We've already got south taken care of completely. After we do the compass points, then we do the corners. So I have one here and one here, and then we do in between. I already have one here and here, so I don't have to worry about those corners. So one in between. So I'm going to put one here and one here, one here, one here, one here, one here. And if you notice, the pins are going to be about every 2 to 3 fingers apart as we go, depending on how big your fingers are. I have big fingers. Mine are more like 2, sometimes 3, but about 2 to 3 fingers apart. This pattern is marked, and let's count how many pins we need. We're going to start here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So for the pocket, you're going to need about 14 pins. This one is the loop pattern. And the first thing that you want to do is make sure that you put a pin at the end of each one of the grain line arrow, because this one has to be put on the straight grain. So I'm going to put a pin here, I'm going to put a pin here, and then because it's small, I really don't need quite as many pins. I'm going to put one up here. So I'm going to go north, I'm going to go east, and I'm going to go west. And I might or might not, depending on your fabric, you might go ahead and put another one here and here. And then one last one here. So starting at my left bottom corner, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So about 8 on this one. And then we have the big guy. Again, the first thing that you do whenever you are putting a pattern on a fabric is that you want to make sure that this grain line is parallel to the edge of the fabric, so either the folded edge or the selvage, depending on where you're putting it. So I'm going to start out by putting a pin here, and then I'm going to make sure that this edge right here, this arrow point is parallel to the selvage, wherever that's going to be over here. And then I'm going to move this, make sure that they are the same distance. So if it's 4 inches on one end, it's 4 inches on the other end. If it's 5 inches, 5 inches. If it's 3.5, it's 3.5. So I'm going to put a pin here. So I have the 2 ends of the arrow taken care of. I don't need this arrow that's going across the pattern. That's just if I were going to put it on a different shaped piece of fabric, I would know where the straight grain should be. All right, so I have my arrow drawn. And then I'm going to do my usual north, south, east, and west. So let me pull this over here a little bit closer. So I have my arrow. I'm going to go up north first. Then I'm going to come south. Then I'm going to put one east. And I'm going to put one west. After the compass points, then I do the corners. So I'm going to do all 4 corners. There's some big spaces in between. Remember I said 2 to 3 fingers? So what we're going to do is we're going to go in between. So halfway between here and here, halfway between here. Actually, I'm going to put 2 here. One about here and one maybe about there. Okay? This one I need 2, so I'm going to put one about here and one about there. Down here it's the same distance, so one about here, one about there, one about here, one about there. And then these, since it's a shorter distance, you can probably just put one here, one here, one here, and one here. So we're going to start at the lower corner again. We're going to count the pins that we need. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. So on this piece of fabric and pattern, you're going to need about 20 pins. Don't put too many in, because the more you put in, the more you have to take out. But if you don't put enough in, then your pattern will tend to shift around on you while you're trying to cut, and then you're going to have jagged edges. So 20. Remember, I don't want that one there, so 20 pins on this particular piece.